Hi, my name is Nick Fox. I am the curator of the Millennial Inheritance community on social media, which is slowly becoming just the inheritance community on social media, as it started with just me and my wife, two millennials, triaging through our belongings of inherited stuff that we didn't realize we were carrying around for this many years. And it is now morphed into a community of people that are boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, all sending in their inheritance to be roasted by myself or to be lightly talked about on social media. And
Right.
when I say roast, I say so with an area of gray and a lot of respect.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of your videos, and it was interesting because the very first one that I saw, my sister-in-law is the reason that you and I actually connected. She must have seen one of your videos and said, "You really need to reach out to this guy and share some of your client stories." I'm like, "No, those aren't for me to share like that. Like I don't want to make fun of my clients like that. I'm trying to help them. They're struggling, right? That really struggling with having too much stuff. But when it comes to the time that some of these clients have passed away or can no longer physically or emotionally or mentally handle it themselves, yeah, I'm working with the adult children, the potential people that are going to inherit all this stuff. And how many times have you heard it? Nobody wants it. Nobody wants it, but the parents
Mm.
keep it anyway, right? Or the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents, whoever. But it I think it was a very interesting post that I saw, because there were many people who were saying how ungrateful you were for the stuff that you were inheriting. And I actually am going to strongly disagree with every single person who said that to you, because I am there every day, seeing what needs to be triaged, seeing what needs to be done, and the pain and the suffering that people really go through keeping this stuff. And even though they don't always realize how much pain and suffering they're experiencing, but that's really what it is. They are burdened with their stuff. I talk about how I met somebody who does treks to Nepal, and when he asked me what I did, I said, I'm a Sherpa. And he's like, what do you mean you're a Sherpa? And I said, well, I'm taking people up the proverbial mountain on their journey, because I've done this journey a billion times. I don't need to be decluttering. I've done it for myself many, many times, but I'm doing it to help other people. And so I'm carrying the burden, I'm carrying the load up the mountain so that we get to that clearing, right? And you have that big moment where you can like just take in a deep breath and take it all in and finally have the clarity that you need. And I think that's a really good analogy, so that people understand our stuff really is a burden. I don't care how little or how much you have to think about where are you going to put it and what are you going to do with it every day of your life until you die, or somebody else takes it all away from you. So when people made those comments to you about how ungrateful you were, I really hope that you did not feel guilty at that point. I hope that you understood that these are just more people who really have not embraced and understood the burden of our stuff, the physical and emotional and mental burden of our stuff. It is a lot. We have enough chaos going on in the world, I think, that creates so much internal clutter. As professional organizers always talk about how that internal ultimately turns into external clutter.
Mm.
And our job is to eliminate as much of the external clutter, but working on the internal clutter at the same time. I'm not a therapist though, and I'm not a case manager, and neither are you. So we get to have a little bit of wiggle room in inserting humor as much as we possibly can when it's appropriate. And you do a really good job at that. And I'm curious, and I don't know if people will have watched any of your videos by the time they see this podcast, but um, do you actually write a script
I do.
before you do?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like you're reading from a script at all. It is really smooth, I have to
So
say.
I thank you. I thank you. Years and the public speaking and all the things. Well, a lot to unpack. First of all, 90% of the comments on the first video were positive. The 10% of the people that were saying that I'm ungrateful, you don't get it. Like, and they're
Yeah.
not all gonna get it. Um, and that's always gonna be a through line until people understand, like, when look, if someone were to come to me right now and say, what do you do on social media? Let's say, I roast people's inheritance. Like, that doesn't sound good, right?
I
So
think it sounds great.
well, like, yeah, it does. I think when you understand it, like, and I think that's why in the beginning of this, obviously, I gave a long explanation of, I am an emotional support system for the people that are triaging inherited clutter. That's a lot of words to
Yeah.
digest, but essentially, that's what it's become. It's become 40% comedy, 60% heart and emotional support. And I feel like I need to go back to school to be a therapist in a way. Like it's kind of what now I'm not a licensed therapist by any stretch of the imagination. I just am one of those people that have had the superpower of being able to turn my own traumas into comedy because that's the way I cope with it.
Right.
And so
And
that's
that is comedy.
effectively what we're doing
Most,
is we're turning it to yeah, saying this is the obscurity of our situation. We have a couple choices. We can laugh at it, we can deal with it, or we can cry about it. And I think through this web series, we're yo-yoing with all of those things. And that's, I think, I feel like it's constantly evolving because I feel like now in a lot of the episodes I've done, they've been more heart and less funny haha.
yeah.
Um, so I will say that when people reach out, usually they are so far past their grief that they immediately want the comedy.
Right.
And
Right.
that's really why they're coming. But then I think there's a refreshing aspect of reflection that we're also able to kind of provide through going through and doing all this. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Oh, totally. And one of the things that I say, and again, I insert humor when I know I can insert humor. I don't want to ever insult any of my clients, but I would say on average once a day I'm saying, "Oh, but wait, there's more."
Yeah,
Because we're
wow,
think
that's a
right.
lot.
We thought we already found every single one of the Beanie Babies or Hummels or whatever it was, or today it was gloves,
Gloves.
hundreds of pairs of gloves.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, and as I'm like digging through the front closet, I'm like, oh, but wait, there's more. And I'm just like literally throwing them at, not throwing them at my client, but just like pushing them out of the closet. And she's like, wow, I had no idea there were all of those back there. Um, but that's what happens when you can't see what you can't see.
Right.
Um, one of the stories I tell is that when I started this iteration of my business, which no, I do not work for Thumbtack, even though I'm wearing one of their hats. I happen to be on their pro advisory board, so I'm very proud of that. But one of the things that happened when I started this iteration during it was a result of the pandemic, actually, because in that initial lockdown phase, a lot of people were online complaining about where did all this stuff come from? I can't keep up with it. I want to throw my family out with everything that's in the house right now. And I would insert myself into those conversations and slowly as the lockdown ended, I would, pick up those people as clients. And that was really how the trajectory of my business really grew as a result of the pandemic. But what I always said, they're like, where did this come from? I said, it was always there. You just didn't have to see it. But you don't see what you don't have to see because you're so busy running out the door at 6:30 in the morning, taking kids to school or getting to the gym or going to work. And then you're running back in to make dinner and do homework and clean up and all of that, but you don't really see everything in your house. And then suddenly you're in your house 24/7 for months on end, and now you see it. and you don't understand where it came from, but you don't want it there, and you got to think about how to get rid of it. And so I think that, between the pandemic, especially here in Colorado, the pandemic and then the Marshall Fire happened, a lot of people really in the last couple of years have just dug really, really deep and said, you know what? I just don't need all this. And I think that that's why you're succeeding and touching people so deeply at the same time that I am. And I don't, my brother is an attorney, and he's got a very black and white kind of business mindset. And I tend to be more gray, and I ride the emotions more than he does of the highs and lows of a business like this. And it's very interesting that when I think that as people are dealing with whatever the economy is doing right now, you just sort of went sideways there. Okay.
Sorry, phone
No,
call
you're
from the
okay.
wife.
You're okay. You're okay. As as the economy is struggling right now, I think a lot of people are hunkering down more and see, again, just like with the pandemic, they're seeing what's going on in their house. And so all these people that are reaching out to you right now, part of them, I think, are looking at, well, can I make any money with all this stuff? And the other part of them is just facing the reality that it's just, as my business name says, it's just stuff. It's just stuff for a lot of people.
It
Um,
is. It is.
yeah,
And
but it's
some
also
and to your
memories.
point, like it's stuff, it's memories, it holds emotional weight. Sometimes you don't know what the stuff has
Right.
in terms of the emotional weight. And that's what gives you the insecurity about, well, I don't know what this person did with this.
Right.
Does, are there rules? Were there
Right.
rules set forth by this person? Do I have to tap into my memory banks to remember what they wanted me to do with their stand mixer from the 1970s? Like,
Right.
am I supposed to need this for something? And that's part of the paralysis of,
Yeah.
especially for people like me and my wife who are neurodivergent. We have this uh like, and this is part of why it's so hard to go through these, is because we're like, is there, I have a different relationship with stuff. I realized early on in our relationship that I would organize and then reorganize stuff that already was organized. It was like a way I was like needing control.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize about her at the time was she's object permanent. So like everything has its place, it goes there so you do not lose it. And so like my chaos of like, I organized it. Look, it was like it was already organized.
Yeah.
So I realized how much time I was wasting over something so like the, was an absolute utter waste of my. So I was like, I have to change this about
Yeah.
my personality. But we've had stuff in totes, we've had stuff in boxes, and it's always been like a put it to the side and like we'll deal with it later. We'll deal with it when we deal with it. And that is what kind of caught up to us in October whenever we moved into our home, because we're like, we're not keeping these boxes anymore. So to your point about what was happening in Colorado and, post pandemic and all the things, that is, I think, always happening with people. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that decluttering businesses were like such a big deal. Obviously, you know about like estate sale companies and auctioneers and all this. Decluttering is, really important. But it's also really hard when, for so many people, it's an oversimplification. And for so many others, it's a, are there rules attached to this? Are there like,
Right.
there's all these boxes you have to check.
Right.
And depending on the dynamic of your family and the relationships inside of them, that can be really hard or really easy. One of the things that gets pointed out now every day in my comments is almost every video that I post has proof that autism has existed for a really long time. That the spectrum of autism, like, and we know a lot more about the
Yeah.
spectrum now, right? And we understand that the spectrum is way more encompassing. It's not just Asperger's and autistic. It's also like AUDHD and OCD and like so like there's this like wide spectrum of neurodivergence that I think we're seeing in the stuff of our parents. And that's
Right.
something that literally people bring up in my comments every day. And I'm about this close to making a video to saying, guys, do we have to continue to point this out? Because I don't think RFK watches my Instagram.
I will tell you that I don't believe there's anything as neurotypical. I hate that word. I
Mm,
really hate that word
sure,
because
yeah.
I think it sets everybody else up for failure
Yeah,
because
it's like
we're
no
less
one's
than.
normal, right? Like none of us are
We're all on the
normal.
crazy continuum. Let's just face it. We all
Yeah,
are on the crazy continuum, and I'm okay with that. And anybody that says that they're not, they're the craziest of them all. And
denial,
Michael,
denial.
you should probably comment on this because Michael and I have a lot of conversations about the neurodivergent world. He identifies as it. I was diagnosed very late in life with ADHD, spent most of my life being told I was OCD. And I know there's an overlap. I get
Spectrum.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. But I think that especially as a girl who became a woman, we were not we were not identified as having ADHD because
Correct.
we
Correct.
were supposed to be quiet and sit there and just do our work and not raise our hand and ask a lot of questions, even though I did. I was that kid, and I wasn't afraid of it. That's just how I was raised. But I knew from a very young age that I needed order, and I didn't believe that it was because I was OCD. I believed there was something going on in my brain that said, you need order, figure out a way to always have order, overcompensate, cope, do whatever you got to do. That didn't make me OCD though. And yet that's what I was labeled as
Mm.
because it was easier to label me as OCD, a hysterical woman, dare I say, than really figure out what the true problem was. And I give a lot of credit to a woman that I met about 6, 8 years ago here in Colorado, who within the first week that she knew me said, "Has anybody ever told you you might have ADHD?" And she is an ADHD expert.
Mm.
So I got diagnosed, and the story that I tell is my daughter was diagnosed at a very young age. She has more inattentive, I'm more hyper focus, which makes doing what I do for a living actually really easy because I
Yeah.
go in, I find the corner, I start peeling back the layers, I look at the low hanging fruit, and I can hyper focus from now until tomorrow and not really get tired. I get more tired sitting at a desk than I do being at a client's house all day. And that's just who I am at my core. Um, so it's really unfair, I think, for us to ever label anybody. We should all be embracing our differences. But here we are in 2026 now, still arguing over how to help people. And it one of the and Michael knows this about me. He and I are both Jewish. And
Shalom.
there's thank you. There is a phrase, tikkun olam, which means repair the world. And it's not a religious, it's just a Hebrew phrase. And we just grew up hearing it, going to Sunday school and saying, you bring your tzedakah and we're here to help repair the world. And whether or not you embrace it, who knows? But I'd like to think that that should be a concept that we should all embrace. And yet, again, here we are in 2026, not embracing it. And that's where I get so upset because nowhere is it written that anybody, woke up one morning deciding to be um, uh, disorganized or have chronic disorganization or be a hoarder. It happened either as a result of trauma or genetics or just whatever the reason may be. So I think it is wonderful that there are people like you out there, and roasting may not be the right word, just bringing
Probably
light
not.
to
Yeah.
it. Bringing light
Yeah.
to it, that's really what it is, light and awareness to a very real situation in our country, which is we have too much stuff. We just do.
We do. It's been, the discourse about capitalism and our society and all the things is there subtextually. It's not there obviously in the content that I create, but subtext I think is important. Context to these situations is important. What people, you know, the levels of grief and then how they arrive at just being like really upset with their relatives for what has hath been left them
Right.
um is I wouldn't even say it's interesting. Sometimes it's really sad, and it's almost taboo to talk about with them while they're alive, because a lot of times what happens is then they're like, "What? You want me gone? Like you want to talk about oh, slow down. Like we don't want you gone. We just want to plan. We want to
Right.
we want to we want to
Right.
know that
It's
there's a
like
plan in place."
there's a reason that we have estate attorneys, right? Because they're all about planning ahead. There's a reason that people go and buy funeral plots ahead of time. They don't want to burden their family, and yet they still leave them with this giant burden of stuff. And it I tell my kids all the time, I may be a pain in their ass in life, but in death, they're gonna really love me
Yeah.
because I'm not
Well,
leaving
and
them anything.
this is the thing that I'm asking people now, especially the people that will be like, "Oh, you're ungrateful" or whatever. How long, how long do you want me to grieve you?
Yeah,
Like if you try to have that conversation with your parents and they are, nope, you're just gonna get what you're gonna get and how you're gonna get it. And I was like,
yeah,
okay. Well,
yeah.
if I get a whole bunch, let's just say hypothetically, mom or dad, if I'm getting a whole bunch, how long do you want me to be able to grieve for you before I have to tackle the triage? Oh, 3 days a week. Really? You think that the people that brought me into this world, like, you think that there's a cutoff for me emotionally, and I'm just going to go straight into your storage unit? Like, all right, let's tackle the day. Like, and so I think that's the art of Swedish death cleaning that so many people talk about,
Right.
and why. Thankfully, some of the videos that I've put out, I've seen the comments. I watched the comments, and a lot of people are saying, "You've inspired me to start this now," and that is appreciated to
Yeah,
hear that from a lot of folks, from a multi-generational spectrum for sure. To
yeah,
that, we're at least having the conversations. I think the conversations are important. To be fair, I am not the best example of someone that's done a great job of having these conversations with my folks for a lot of different reasons. But these videos have helped me bring that to the surface for them and make it, I think, a little bit more real, which has also been kind of gratifying,
right.
and so if it helps me and other people at the same time, then awesome. But yeah, there's a lot of layers to this, to your
Yeah.
point.
When my mother passed away 20 years ago, and she was the historian, the archivist, whatever you want to call it, for the family, and it was very organized. Like everything had a certain box or bin or whatever in the basement. But my father, and he may or may not see this video, he didn't lift a finger.
Yeah,
He really felt like it was my sister, for me and my sister primarily. My brother came like I think once or twice. He lived in California though, and my parents were in Michigan and I was in Florida. So, for him it was a little bit more of an effort. But my sister and I took almost a year. I would come in every 4 to 5 weeks, spend a weekend in the basement, going through everything with her, and we came across tens of thousands of photographs. Now, my grandmother, even though she kept them all, she did write the names and the dates and everything on the back. I'll give her credit for that. But didn't know most of the people that were in the photographs. And I knew all of her friends and the relatives and all of that. But anybody that we didn't even recognize the name, into the garbage it went. I just didn't. And my grandmother was really superstitious. She felt like if you threw a photograph away, that meant you were throwing the person away, like you were just killing them all over again.
oh wow.
And yeah, yeah, she was, and I adored my grandmother, but she was very, 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 uh, very passionate about family and history and memories. And so when you know my we were going through all those photos, my sister and I made the decisions that we made, and we take them upstairs and ask my father if he wanted them. What do I want these for? Okay, fine, they're going in the garbage. But I still had thousands of photographs that
Mm.
were ones that I decided, all right, I don't have the time now to do this. I'll take them back to Florida. I'll pay my kids $5 an hour during winter break to sit on the couch and just scan them. You know, take pictures with their phone or my little mini scanner. And they did that. And I tell this story during, especially in presentations to any of our like senior groups. Um, did all the scanning, New Year's Day night, garbage was coming the next day, said to my husband at the time, please take these two big garbage bags and lift them up and take them to the curb. Do not drag them because the bags will break. And he's like, okay. And he goes out the door. 10 seconds later, he walks back in. Babe, I need you outside. I'm like, you didn't pick up the bags, did you? He's like, please don't yell at me. I'm like, oh my God, it was one thing that I asked you to do. Just pick them up. Pictures were flying all over the neighborhood. And I felt like on some level, my grandmother was somewhere out there in the universe, as much as I loved her, giving me the finger, saying, see, I told you not to throw them away. And so for weeks afterwards, there were pictures flying all over my neighborhood, and people would just stick them in the mailbox. And I tell that story because I want especially the seniors to realize that you don't have to keep every single photograph, you know, especially the ones that you just can't even tell who the people are anymore. They're faded, they're blurry, whatever. But it's still hard for a lot of people to accept that, to, you know, there's that, but
Well, and
someday
digitizing photos, is it, does that make the photo less real for people too? Like, and I think that's a
it
question
does.
for older folks. Sorry, I got to let the dog out.
Go ahead.
So I think that's a question that I often kind of ponder because I recently went through and purged all my yearbooks. Now, for context, I had yearbooks going back to kindergarten.
Oh my
Most
God.
people do not have yearbooks going back to first, second, third grade, but I went to an all boys private school on the Upper East Side. So I had from pre primary to seventh grade. And then apparently at the other middle schools in Connecticut and all high school, you get them there. So
Yeah.
I finally just went through them all and was like, what do I need really? Like, what am I keeping? And I kept a handful of photos from people I care about, and that's pretty much it. But
Yeah.
it's tough for people when you've been taught to not, especially for generations that have been taught to not throw things away. That's
Right.
that's that's really
It's the
hard.
scarcity mindset, you know,
Right.
especially my father was born in 36, so you know, the tail end of the depression.
Hmm.
But you know, through World War II, you know, there was obviously rationing that was going on. I don't think that my father is quite like the generation before him, but he still has the piles of stuff in the basement that we already went through and told him we don't want. And yet it has still traveled through. He's now moved one, two, three times since my mom died. Um, no, two times, I guess. Um, and we keep telling him, what are you saving that for? You know, it's just going to go in the garbage the day after you die. We've
Well, and this
already
is
made
this is the
decisions about
stuff
that.
that, like, from a psychology standpoint, I want to understand more. And obviously, like, it's since doing the Millennial Inheritance series, it's given me more of like a. Do you need to be a
Compassion.
counselor? Do you need to you need to go back and take psychology? Like, what are where could this go? And like, how can I be useful to people? Because people like your dad, the only thing I can imagine is, all right, well, what does the stuff represent to him? Or is it something that connects him to a feeling? Or is it he's afraid to let go of something because of who it represents in his life? So, like, I would have all these questions for him to try to understand what it is that he's hanging on to or why he's hanging on to it.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. My father, I don't, he would not be able to articulate it. There's no way in the world. Because I've asked him,
Okay.
repeatedly. I'm like, why are you holding on to this? You know that we don't want it. So his phrase is, God damn it all, just leave it there. And that's my trauma that I carry.
Avoidance.
Yeah.
Avoidance. Yeah.
I carry the God damn it all trauma. Like he is just dismissing me. Like it's not important what I think or feel. Like as far as he's concerned, just leave it there. It's not hurting anybody. And when I die, fine, throw it all out. Okay, fine. You know what? I don't have to go in the basement. I don't have to live in Michigan with you anymore. I don't have to deal with it. But yes, it will all go in the garbage the day after he dies.
Mm.
We know what it is. We don't want any of it. We made those decisions a long time ago when my mom died. And the same way that my kids know, there's really not much left that they would have to go through at this point. If God forbid something happened to me tomorrow, I don't even think they would need to come here. I think that, one of my friends could just show them what's left and they'd be like, yeah, just donate it. They've
Yeah.
gotten what they want.
Yeah. It's, I think what I've noticed about people since being in this space, again, and I think I alluded to this before, it's either loaded very emotionally or it's an oversimplification of get rid of.
Yeah.
It's the two extremes, and
Right.
the people that are on the one side don't understand people on the other, and they don't make the effort to understand until you're married to one of those people, and then that's when it's like, oh,
I see Michael laughing. Michael, you have to insert yourself here.
Um, well, speaking from a neurospicy household that also organizes and then reorganizes, but then there's another partner. I totally get it. I'm curious because, like, I agree. You're going through the stages of grief. You have complicated emotions, and I'm curious if anyone has heard of like creative ways to both like honor the whatever the collection is, the stuff that you've gotten from likely your parents or your grandparents, while not having it just take over everything. Like I feel like there's like the easy of like you have 1,000 Beanie Babies, you keep your favorite three, and then you get rid of the
yeah,
rest. But have you heard
yeah.
of any other like creative ways to kind of play off of that, like honoring your nostalgia, honoring that parent while also not keeping all everything?
Yeah, so the biggest video I did, ironically in 2025, was just a few weeks ago. It was less than a month ago. It was probably 3 weeks ago I posted it. It was the Millennial Inheritance raccoon room
Oh my God,
video.
I saw that.
Yeah, so it had 1.7 million views on Meta platforms in like it had 600,000 views in 24 hours and then got over a million in 48. It was like I'd never seen anything like that. And I didn't think it was that great of a video. As far as like, my body of work, I wasn't like,
Yeah.
but anyway, it
It was
was
the absurdity and obscurity of it. How's
it
that?
was, and I also had a hook of like, God forbid you inherit a rock collection. It was just a big thing. So I think that got people to watch too. Like, people are inheriting rocks. Like, so just for people that have never seen my content before, like, just you can go watch it. But one of the beautiful things about that video, one of the things I was really proud of that video was that we ended with heart. We ended on a note of what you're talking about, Michael, which is essentially there were thousands of porcelain raccoons in this collection, and when the person died, the daughters each decided that they were going to keep one or two, and
Right.
they each kept two, and the rest got sold off or gifted or anything like that. I thought that the video I posted on New Year's Day would be similar, and it definitely got some eyes on it, but it was a beaver inheritance room. But there's these people that have like beavers in their household because they're Oregon State University alumni, and they were amazing because they had like local news come out to see their collection 15 years ago, and they have a spreadsheet of all their beavers, and what they wanted to do was like basically, you know, kids, you guys are going to get the beaver collection. The kids are like, we don't want the beaver collection. Well, even if you can convince the kids to take two, there's going to be like 1,300 and change left. So my question was like, do we do we gift them to students and alumni at OSU? And then retroactively, I found out that there sort of is kind of a plan in place for that are already from the submitters of that story, and the people that asked for it to be featured on the page. So I think, Michael, to your question, I think again, if the communication is there now, when it's not someone's on their deathbed and we're willing to have a logical, level-headed conversation, I think as long as everyone's on the same page, there can be an executed plan. It's when there's not that we run into what we're running into most commonly.
Right.
And I think that of the ideas that I have heard, the best ones are keep one or two, the rest's on with it. Or if there's something that like you want, like, I talked to my dad a few weeks ago and I found out, and long story, I've only known my dad for 4 years. Another story. Guy had no idea I existed, by the way. Anyway, so he has a collection of Marvel comics. Well, I'm a huge nerd, so of course I'm like, yeah, I want that. And thank you. And if we want the comics, and if there's anything of value in there, obviously I'll split it with my brother and sister. Like but it's the fact that like I will volunteer to go through the stuff that I am like passionate about going through, right? Like, so I think we all have that, right? We all have that. Like, there's a lane that we want to be in when it comes to the stuff. Like, if you have a watch, I will take it. Like, it's from this person. It will always symbolize them. Like, watches have that je ne sais quoi, right? And they're
Right.
small, and it's not going to take up a lot of space in your house, and it's
And they're
like
functional,
and they're sentimental. So like that works for me. But boxes and boxes of stuff, well,
Yeah.
and now since doing this, the big question is, especially with dishes, is there lead? What's in the glaze? When was it made?
Yeah.
And so now it's more of like okay, like we're triaging for saving lives, and we have, and
Right.
it's working. But that's something that a lot of people, it needs to be on a lot of people's radar, that they're going into a situation where they've hoarded dishes. Okay, great. Well, it's usable, but only if it doesn't have lead.
Right. I had a client that had tens of thousands of dishes, and a decision was made to literally just smash them into pieces and create a mosaic wall
Yeah.
of all the dishes, which I thought was beautiful.
I've seen
Right?
some mosaics. I saw
Yeah.
they broke their desert rose dishes and she made a cross. It was in one of my videos. Really, really cool idea.
Yeah.
Like,
There's always ways to repurpose and upcycle and all of that. I mean, I am like constantly, and Michael knows this about me, and my community knows this about me. There is never a client that I leave without something that I can then redistribute to somebody local in the community, whether they have a desperate need like coats, gloves, hats, whatever, food. But then there are the more obscure things like the other day I was a senior that we had helped move that I did not do enough decluttering before she moved from 3,000 square feet to about 700 or 800 square feet in assisted living.
oh yeah,
And
oh
she
yeah,
was very into crafting, and all of her crafting supplies were supposed to be in the storage locker in the garage of the assisted living community until she could get more settled into her apartment. But then there was one giant bin and that I looked at the other day. I said, "What is this?" She's like, "That wasn't supposed to come here." And I opened it up and it was basically wool that had not been spun yet.
oh
So
wow,
apparently there are people that will literally spin wool. I don't know how they do it. And then use it for weaving or knitting or whatever. And there was just this giant bin of wool that was ready to be spun. Like, I mean, who would want that except for somebody who specifically has the equipment already to do that kind of project? And I happened to have been talking about it after yoga yesterday, and the woman that I happen to know sitting next to me said, "Oh yeah, my sister will take that all of that." I'm like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah, she's coming to visit in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna send her home with it. It'll smash down in her suitcase, or we'll put it in a box. It doesn't weigh a lot. It's very light." So yeah, I mean, I love when I can do things like that. I mean, I love even more when like furniture and really, things that people who might have been previously unhoused need furniture, kids who age out of the foster care system. These are all people that need things, and that I always encourage my clients to consider, so that,
There's some good ideas that I've seen of people just trying not to be wasteful. To your point, I think there's a lot
yeah,
of like repurposing that is going on, and also like people are in active conversations about how not to give to even charities that feel more like conglomerates, and
good. Are we
these.
mentioning names?
I mean, I think it's people know
I
the.
mention them all the time.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
people know the usual suspects, and it's okay to mention them because sometimes they are kind of a necessity because there are so many of them and they're easily accessible, and that
yeah,
becomes I've given plenty to Goodwill over the years, and I've given to Salvation Army, and I've also like tried to pawn things off on people. I think there's a huge desire to try to not be wasteful.
yeah,
That also is the driving force behind people that are saying, um, are there emotional rules attached to this thing that I've inherited? You know,
yeah,
what are they? And if there aren't any rules, the next thing is, what do I do with it that's responsible?
right.
And that's, I think, a lot of part of that paralysis arc that people feel, and why, if you go into someone's house and they have so many boxes around, they haven't been able to get through it all, maybe because of those reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. Guilt will kill people in the end when it comes to this type of
Yes.
downsizing and decluttering. Um, we were talking about collections and what to do with them and how to intentionally. There's a couple of different things that I've done through the years. I mean, I had one client, the mother had a stroke, they had to quickly move her out of her apartment. She went into, after the hospital, went into rehab. They thought she was then going to go into an assisted living community, sadly passed away while she was still in rehab. She had Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I mean, it was not a good combination, but she had collected penguins of all shapes and sizes, just like the beavers and the raccoons and all of that. And there was a 10 by 20 storage unit that was just filled with penguin paraphernalia. And the daughter said to me, we've taken the ones that we want. What do we do with the rest? And what do we do with all of this? I said, well, the easiest thing to do would be call in a junk removal company and they'll just come and haul it all away. She's like, I don't like the idea of that. I don't want it to just end up in a landfill. I said, well, the other option is let's just open up the storage unit for people to come and get whatever they want.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And it was during the pandemic. It was in December of 20. At the very end of the year, it was between Christmas and New Year's. And I remember shutting rolling the door down at like 3:59 on New Year's Eve. And the last penguin had gone out like maybe 20 seconds before. But there was a box of them that somehow ended up in my car. And instead of just taking them to a donation center or whatever, I looked at each one that was in my car and thought, all right, I am going to intentionally figure out how to match up these penguins with different members of my family and some friends. And there was one that was on skis. So my son, who was living in Telluride at the time, got that one. And then there was the one with like one little baby penguin in the belly, and my sister got that one because she had one child. The one that looked like an angry bird, that one went to my dad.
That's awesome.
And I sent a picture of all of them lined up, and I asked my family to guess who was getting which one. Immediately, without hesitation, everybody got the angry bird one. Immediately, like there was no hesitation at all. So, I don't know if my father got the joke. It's okay if he didn't, but at the same time, we all found the humor in it, and I think it was really just a nice way of honoring that client's mother's memory beyond just their family. There are penguins now all over Boulder County that people didn't have 5 years ago. So yeah, I mean, it's great if we can do that kind of thing. And it's always, I'm lucky, not lucky. I worked really hard at getting really hyper connected in the community so that I can call on people who run nonprofits or who might know people, like especially during the Marshall Fire days, immediately thereafter, like people didn't even have underwear or socks. So
Yeah.
my clients were all donating stuff at that time. And, it was going to different places, little pop-up places. So, I always try and encourage my clients to be generous when it comes to that, because in the grand scheme of life, how much money are we talking about they're going to make? And what the other question that I ask is, will that change the trajectory of their life at the end of their, like by the end of their life, will it have changed it enough? Will it had made a difference in their lives? And if they don't think it will, let it just go. Let it just go.
Yeah,
And
there's some
it's
hard
hard.
lines you can draw. It's not what can you not live with. There's someone this it's not what can you live, it's what can you live without. It's
Yeah,
not, what, hey, can you part with this? No, we need that. Well, what do you need it for? It's more like, hey, can you live without this? Oh,
yeah,
okay. Well, maybe I can live without that. Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
It's the emotional attachment. I mean, that's the bottom line for most of these things. But well, that's not true. It's the scarcity mindset, like someday I might need this again,
yeah.
versus, oh, but that was like the paper clip that I used when I sent my first resume for a job, or whatever it
You
might
guys want to
be.
see what my scarcity mindset looks like? I'll show you. Here. Everyone's got the box of cords and computer components that they don't. I'm gonna go through this and triage this next. This is my project for myself because my computer died today. So
Uh,
I've got
But what if there's a hard drive in there that has that one cord that isn't just a USB-C
that one
and it
cord.
needs that one cable?
I'm gonna need
okay,
that
Similar
HDMI
thought.
cord one
I
day.
have an answer for that. There's the 2020 rule. If it's going to take you less than 20 minutes and less than $20, that's the becoming a minimalist concept. But yeah, that's what it is. It's if it takes you less than 20 minutes and less than $20, do not overthink it. And that's the problem, is most of my clients are just overthinking every single decision. And that's where the paralysis and all the guilt and everything continues to just, make it a very, very difficult thing. Um, One of the things I did want to talk about, because I know we're encroaching on your time a lot. I just saw two of your videos. One was about Lena Hall,
Yeah,
which I thought was beautiful, the way you presented it.
thank you.
And Michael, I don't know if you saw that one. Um, she obviously had no use for any of that stuff. She had made peace with all of it. Great. But then there was that other one where people were sending it in repeatedly, but it wasn't the actual person who created the video to begin with. And you made a decision not to roast that person because they didn't offer the video. It came through a third party, right?
Right.
That's
So what?
integrity.
Well, thank you. Well, look, what's happening now is a lot of people are sending me to me this as a context for, again, people that have not watched any of my videos yet. It is respectful, light roasting. It's more of like, hey, this is the situation that we're in. This is what it looks like. So, kind of take you through what I'm seeing as a first timer amongst these people's inheritance. And in Lena's case, she inherited an amazing home in San Francisco that is like history lives there. It has been there since the 1960s and 70s. But also, Lena reached out to me. She provided photos. She provided an Instagram that has all the photos in it. She provided and said, Nick, ask me anything you want.
Right. She
And
gave you
so
context.
there was context. There was a relationship that was built. She trusted me to do it, and I still have a part two left to do that I probably will record tonight. That provides more context about her dad and why it looks like, and he lived in an art museum.
Right.
And so that's the way it usually goes with the inheritance community. They provide photos, they provide context, and then it's a relationship. We talk, we say what's going on. But what's happening is a lot of people are sending me other content creators stuff when they think of me. And that's awesome. But when everyone's sending you the same video because they thought of you, then the legitimate submissions get forced down in my DMs, and it
Right.
becomes like I have to go back and look for them. So the whole process ends up taking a lot longer. And
Sure.
as a result, it just negates from what we're trying to accomplish with these videos, which is like, hey, we're triaging, but we're also here as emotional support and kind of helping you escape and adding some brevity to your life and everything that you're having to do. So I thank you for that. It is a conscious choice that I will not just do a video off like just anything on the internet. It has to be an individual. You have to reach out to me. It has to be like your permission. And also I feel like that's how you get in trouble on the internet and get into
Yeah.
fights and all these things. And I am not about that drama. So yeah.
No, and one of the things that I ask permission for in my contract with my clients is, can I share photos, videos, and the story
Yeah.
behind the photos and video? And I would say 90% of the people allow me to share the videos, photos, and stories, because I think they understand that that all helps other people so
It
that they
does.
don't go through a lot of the same trauma and grief and emotion and frustration and feeling of overwhelm that they felt like they went through. So and I'm very proud of that. And Michael knows that I am not somebody who has embraced AI. I don't really think that it will ever duplicate my voice. I think that I have my voice for a reason, and
Yeah.
I don't think that AI will ever be able to tell the true stories. So I spend a lot of time writing my blogs, and whether or not people read them, I don't, at least I'm putting the stories out there, and
Yeah.
that makes me feel good. And I know what you're doing makes you feel good too,
It
which
does.
is
And when I started, when I was starting out, I was using AI for some script help and everything like that. And I found myself using it less and less as I've done this now for the last 3 months. And now I'm actively trying to make everything written out because I've got my structure now. I've got it laid out to where it's like I know how each video is supposed to go. And so I really take a lot of pride in the writing of it all, but also the observate. Like AI can't observe what I'm observing and make an immediate connection to what my brain is connecting to. And my brain is inherently, for lack of a better term, millennial. And so, when I make a millennial reference, the millennials get
yeah,
it, so like stuff like that, you cannot duplicate. So and I think too, like there's a lot of questions that I have about environmental impact and all these things that I think, and too, like I live with the woman who's like, you need to get off that GPT. Like, so it's like all these things add up for me too. I think it's just we have to make sure that we're trying to be responsible in our use of all these things.
right, yeah. I love the stories. I do. And every
Yeah.
day I'm taking pictures and, forwarding things to Michael for him to do whatever he does with them to put on social media. Um, and I hope, I think, I know that I'm making a difference. I know that I am. I know that I am based on the comments that I get and the reviews that I get. And you should feel the same way.
Oh, I
So,
definitely feel uplifted. That's the thing I'm most grateful for in this whole thing for sure is again, overall I'd say 95% of the comments are very positive and
right,
people get it very quickly. And I think now that there's a body of work that people can look at on my social media, they look at it and they're like, oh, okay, I get this now. It's either it's a lightly friendly roast, or it's this is why we inherited these porcelain dolls, and this is a whole feature on what these are, so that we can understand the history of why our parents bought these things. So there's
right.
there's levels. So
Right. Well, and one of the things that I say to my potential clients is that, you know, I'm very passionate about what I do, and your passion comes through also. And I don't know if you've monetized this situation, but for
A little
me,
bit, a little bit.
great, great. And you should if you can. But I don't perceive you doing this as a money grab any more than I'm trying to do it for my business. I think
Yeah,
that we're in alignment that, you know, we're just here to help and kind of open people's eyes a little bit to what is, you know, kind of a real problem in our society. So how can we help it? How can we fix it? How can we cure, you know, it for future generations?
agreed. Yeah, you know, for me, since I've only been doing this now for about 3 months, for me, my sole goal in this is now that I actually have people that want to watch my content, so nice, is to just build community, just build community, make people feel supported, and focus on the process, the creative, and as far as the work goes, making it not about me. As someone that's like, I feel like in a lot of ways I'm a reformed narcissist. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like I really, and in radio, they teach you very early on to not to make it about your listeners, right? So like, if you have a life experience, take
Right.
said life experience and relate it back to them. So like, easy example, my wife and I eloped in a horse pasture, didn't tell anyone. Secret wedding. Have you ever had a secret wedding? Perfect example. And so she was the one that was like, you know, you need to ask people on the internet to send you their inheritance. Now this is becoming a thing. I was like, oh, well, you know, it's a great idea. So I appreciate that. You know, I think, you know, if you can make a little bit of money, sure. It started as like $30 and then it's like $500. And like, then in December we hit like 1,300 and that was just on Facebook, believe it or not. And so Instagram views are not monetized. If it was, I could probably do this full time. So, you know, but there's brand partnerships that you can make and connections that you can make with people on Instagram, which I made a great connection today, actually. I had a phone call with someone that is over a 501c3 nonprofit that we'll be partnering with. And so those are ways that obviously will continue to try to move the
Right.
community forward. It has to make sense
Yes.
for us. So in this case, the company that I'm working with is called Jewelry for Good, and you can send them your silver and gold,
Hmm.
and they will give you a complete tax write-off for said silver and gold that you can claim. Take the silver and gold and donate it to the charity of your choice.
Oh, nice.
So I'm like, okay, so that's a good way. So like Aunt Anne's silver that you don't want to polish every year, you send it to
Right.
them, they put it in a vault in Virginia, and then the next thing you know, they're melting it down. But
Right.
then it's like, oh, they've got a whole FAQ about how to tell if silver and gold is real. So that's something that I'm going to be working on to try to give you the spectrum of like how it works, and so that's some stuff that is on
Yeah.
the horizon. So
It's funny some of the strange kind of connections and collaborations that happen when you get into this kind of world. Um,
yes,
I actually was the first person that have you ever heard of Been There, Dump That? They're a
no,
yeah, they're a North
it's a great
American
name.
yeah, North American franchise, you know, roll off dumpster company.
Okay,
And they're vice president of marketing, I think that's what his title is, who lives in Canada, apparently somehow saw that I was this person in Boulder, Colorado, always tagging, been there, dump that, because I believe in that. I believe, like, you know, if I can help another business, why wouldn't I do that? Um,
right.
so I think I was the first person they ever interviewed
Oh,
that had
nice.
nothing. Yeah, and it was this was a year ago, I think, and he just asked me if I would do another one. So we're doing it on Friday, actually. But you know, you never know. You never
You
know who
don't.
you're going
You
to
don't.
meet, who's going to reach out to you. I mean, you know, I certainly did not think when I was, you know, scrolling on Facebook at 3 o'clock in the morning in August of 20 that I was going to end up getting leads from Thumbtack that 5.5 years later, that's where the vast majority of my business comes from.
There you
And, you
go.
know, I hustled really hard and they in turn give me opportunities to be on panels and on their advisory board, and on they'll send my name to different digital publications to contribute to articles. So if you show up for somebody, they're going to show up for you, and you
Yeah.
never know where it's going to lead. Like